Good morning. Today we are looking at a very wonderful distinction. And what it is this: who you're being that something is gives you how you get it. Who you're being that something is gives you how you get it. This contains an amazing truth. If you've really looked at life and inquired into what's going on, you will find that everything is actually empty, just like in a dream. If you were dreaming of a man when you were asleep, he wouldn't actually have a digestion system and muscles. He's empty. He doesn't have any real substantial existence. And he's made of exactly the same substance as the car that he's driving in your sleep dream. He doesn't have any weight. He doesn't have any substantial existence. He's not independent. He's dependent on the mechanics of dreaming. He's dependent on all the other things in the dream. He's not separate. And it's exactly the same here in this domain. Nothing is separate. Nothing substantially exists. Everything is dependent on everything else. Everything is empty. Nothing emanates any meaning from a real self inside it, not even us. If you go within yourself, looking for yourself, looking for the self, what will you find? A clear space. Awareness. But not a thing. So nothing substantially exists. And this is the basis upon which the understanding that I'm going to lead into is based. Nothing exists. Nothing is fixed. It's all dreamlike. And it's all made of the substance of dream. The next thing is that everybody gets everything differently. Like however many of you guys are watching me now, you get me differently. I'm the same guy. I'm just sitting here doing my thing. But you're getting me one way, she's getting me another way. So which of the ways that I'm being got actually am I? You think I'm the way you're getting me. I don't think I'm the way you're getting me. I think I'm the way I'm getting myself. The other person is thinking, no, actually he's the way that I'm getting him. Well, no. So everybody gets everything differently. Isn't that true? In fact, if you've watched all of the videos I've done recently, then you will get me differently each time I do them. Each time you encounter me, you get me differently. Each time you encounter yourself, you get yourself differently. Why? Because there isn't a fixed way that you are, or that I am, or that anything is. That's the basis. That understanding is the basis. So then the question is, what determines how you get something? Because given that we all get everything differently, and given that nothing is actually emanating a way that it is, then what determines how we get stuff? Because we do get stuff to be a certain way. You do get me to be a certain way. It may be different to how I get myself or how the next person gets me, but you do get it to be a certain way. So what determines how you get a thing or a situation or a circumstance or your life? Because there isn't a way that your life is. You experience it differently moment to moment. So what determines that? What determines how you get what is out here, or indeed what is in there? And the answer is, who you're being that it is gives you how you get it. Who you're being that it is gives you how you get it. Now you might say, well, it should be how you're being that it is gives you how you get it. But no, and I'll tell you why. Because we've already said that looking within, there was nobody there. There was a construct of somebody there, but we went beyond that and saw that it was just clear space. There isn't somebody who's being a certain way. So it's who rather than how. Because if it was how you're being, it would mean that there was an entity who was being a certain way, but there isn't. So it's who you're being. The beingness is qualified in which way? Who you're being. Oh, he's being Mr. Angry. Oh, he's being Mr. Happy. So what does it mean? Who you're being? What does being mean in this context? Who you're being that I am gives you how you get me. So in this case, being means, who you're being means, the space you are for me. Are you an open space for me? Or are you a conditional space for me? And is that conditioned space that you are for me governed by your past? By your perspectives which are generated out of what you've made of your past? So who your being is the space you are for me. The clearing you are for me. What you're allowing me to be. You might, for example, have had a bad experience with guys with beards. And so when you see me with a beard, somehow that is in between you and clear seeing of me. Subtly or intensely. Sometimes when we've had traumatic experiences, we see someone who looks like the person who caused us the trauma, and we go into a full body reaction. We feel energy, heart palpitations, maybe we sweat, maybe we even panic. Oh my God, and it coming up from a deep, deep place. Who you're being that I am gives you how you get me. So it could also be your state of mind when you're getting me. That could affect you also. If you were like really drunk, you would get me in a skewed way. You wouldn't get the subtleties. If you were really high, you might see me with lights and, strange apparition. So your own consciousness also, how the state that it's in, is part of who you're being that I am, that will give you how you get me. So there's a whole array of qualifications that determine who you're being that anything is in any one moment, which gives you how you get it. So for example, in a relationship, and this is where this distinction is so useful, because in a relationship you have a complaint, oh, she's always doing that, right? So and what you're really saying is, who I'm being that she is giving me how I'm getting her, and how I'm getting her is she's always doing that, which is really annoying. But she's not experiencing what she's doing as annoying. She's just doing what she's doing. Who you're being that what she's doing is such that you're experiencing it as annoying. The annoying doesn't emanate from what she's doing. It emanates from what it triggers in you. So who I'm being that she is gives me how I get her. I am responsible for that. And there's the twist, because normally people say things like, you made me think this, you made me say this, you made me do this. I'm a victim of your behavior, on these different levels. Because you do this, I'm suffering. Because you said that, I'm suffering. Because you're doing that, I've been depressed. But that leaves you as a victim. What can you do? If your experience is run by someone else or something else, what can you do? You're a complete victim. You're powerless. Nothing you can do. So you take another view. Now this is like not how it is, but it's a choice you can make. It's a stand you can choose to accept that who I'm being that she is actually what's giving me how I'm getting her. And then you're responsible for your experience of that person. Because you realize that who you're being that she is actually what's giving this. Or like, for example, someone, oh, my lover went off with my best friend. He betrayed me. Victim, victim, victim. We assume the victim role in trauma at the beginning because we can take refuge there and we can have some healing there in the initial stages. But with relationships, for example, in order to have closure, you're going to need to get out of the narrative about being a victim to someone else's behaviors. Because the stage beyond that is you get that actually you're not a victim to anybody's behaviors. That if he betrayed you, the question would be, how did you give him subtle permission to do that by the way that you were being? Who are you being that the relationship was such that betrayal came? Who are you being that he was such that he felt it was acceptable to betray you? Who are you being that you were such that you got betrayed? Now these questions are wonderful accesses to deeper parts of the way we are. Because the way, if someone does something, say they betray you, then who you're being that they were gave them permission to do that. But why would you do that? Because there are payoffs. There are payoffs for you in being that way, you think. So, and the way you access a payoff in this context is to ask a question like, who don't I have to be as long as I'm being that he's like that? In other words, why did you create all this? What does it save you from? What's the benefit? And you realize that the benefit's always very small. And the cost is always very big. The cost is always bigger than the benefit. So, who you're being that somebody is gives you how you get them. Often, our comments about other people, so one of the payoffs is that we get to transfer and we get to project onto them. You're like this, you do that. And very often when we tell people in anger how they are, they don't actually relate. It's a bit of a mystery. Oh really? That's how you get me? And that's because most of our judgments are projections, or where we're transferring stuff from our own unresolvedness. Because we haven't really seen that in ourselves, we project it out onto another so it can be viewed. The same thing can happen with, for example, projections in relationships where you have an ideal. A man, for example, has an ideal feminine, his own ideal feminine that he hasn't really absorbed into the totality of his expression. So what does he do? Someone comes along and in literally in seconds of seeing that person sometimes, this anima, this idea, this ideal is projected out onto the person. And then the man engages with his own unfelt feminine aspect by projecting onto someone else. And the other person kind of feels a little bit strange because they feel they're not quite being got. It's very nice to have all that attention, but they're not quite being got as they actually are. And that's a relationship where it's kind of dysfunctional. It's a projection. And sometimes that can happen both ways. A woman will meet a man who she projects her ideal upon, and he will project his ideal upon her. And so there'll be a double projection going on, which can lead to great confusion and great pain and also great heights. But it's very polarized and shouldn't be confused with love. That is a psychological entanglement. So this idea of who I'm being, that you are, gives me how I get you. Who you're being that I am gives you how you get me. There isn't a way that I am. In what context is that true? There isn't a way that I am. There isn't a way that I am. Because there isn't an I there in the first place. To be a way. All there is always different. Even if it seems the same, it's different. There isn't a way that we are. So, no more victim. This is the end of victimhood. Now, obviously there are some deeply traumatic and horrible things like children getting traumatized sexually and things like this. And you can't say, okay, well, who you were being, that terrible person was, gave you how you got him. It's not appropriate there. But generally speaking, it is appropriate. And it's a way beyond victimhood and forces you to realize that you're responsible for your thoughts. There's always a choice what you're going to think. You're responsible for your feelings. No one can make you feel anything. You choose that. That's your stuff coming up. No one can make you do anything. That's your choice. And taking that kind of responsibility is empowering and brings clarity in relationships. So you have a complaint about your partner and you go, okay, rather than telling him how he is, you look at how you got him, and from the point of view that it was who you were being that he was that gave you how you got him. And you check yourself, because that's the only thing you can check. That's the only thing you can look at. You can't look at anybody else from the inside. You can look at yourself from the inside and out, but you can't look at your partner that way. Only he can look at himself from the inside out. Everybody else is looking at the outside in. So as this becomes clearer, who you're being, that your life is, gives you how you get it. For example, another great one. Who you're being that your life is gives you how you get it, nothing else. It's like the law of attraction taken to the next level. There's no outside force giving you your life. The events are empty. Every single person gets this locked down differently. If it was a way, we'd all get it that way. But nobody does. Everybody gets it differently. And not only do they get it differently, they get it differently each moment. Who you're being that your life is gives you how you get it. If who you're being that your life is that you're not good enough, that there's something wrong, then you will have thoughts that will arise out of that beingness, supporting it. And if you persist in those thoughts, then you will have drama turn up that proves you right when you say there's something wrong and I'm not good enough. But still, it won't be true, even though there are dramas substantiating that fact. But it's still not who you are, and it's still not the truth about you. It's just who you are being that you are, which is a cause that creates the drama in alignment with who you're being that you are. So that means that because there isn't any fixed way you are, that once you get that it's who you're being that you are that determines how your life turns out and how you appear to yourself, then you can transform that. You can only transform it once you've actually seen who you are being that you are, which gives you how you get yourself. But once you do see that, and the payoffs for being that way, and how it originated, then you're good to go. Then you can start transforming and generating new possibilities of being. And that's something we can do. So generating new possibilities is in the same realm as choosing, which is distinct from deciding. I might talk about that at a different point. But choosing and inventing possibility, they are creative acts. They actually transform how life appears for us. Whereas deciding or hoping don't really, just because you've decided to do something doesn't mean it's going to happen. But if you choose to do something, then it transforms your life, and then it reconfigures your life in accordance with that choice, which is made out of being. Everything comes out of being. So first we have to get who we truly are, which is there's nothing there, just being. And then see that what determines how things turn up for me, how I get things, is given by who I'm being that they are. And then to realize that part of who I'm being that I am, and part of who I'm being that life is hidden from me, because it's coming out of unresolved, unconscious, subconscious material. And so checking who I'm being that something is allows me to go on a journey and clear some of that stuff. Who I'm being that my life is that it's just wonderful. Who I'm being that you are is that you're a brilliant being. There is no fixed way that you are. Brilliant being or shocker, it's the same. And what this really leads us to is the famous, the ancient view that this life is a dream. But it starts to unravel exactly how it's a dream. Who you're being that I am gives you how you get me. Who you're being that you are gives you how you get yourself. You're not fixed. Who you truly are is not wounded or affected at all by the past. The character which has arisen out of who you're being that you are in the past, that appears as wounded and broken perhaps. But does that mean you actually are wounded and broken? And the answer is no. It's just who you're being that you are, which is transformable. I know it probably sounds a bit complicated, but it's worth perhaps listening over again. Because if you get this, then suddenly you've got a brand new tool and more power for transformation and to start or carry on or expand on your journey of being prosperous, being abundant, being loving, being happy, being liberated from the causes of suffering. So all these videos will be on YouTube as well, Timeon Talks on YouTube. So I think we're done. Who I'm being that I am gives me how I get myself. Who I'm being that you are gives me how I get you. There isn't a fixed way that I am. There isn't a fixed way that you are. I'm responsible for how I get you. It's a different way of looking. and it really works.